In the wake of the events of September 11th and the anthrax scare that followed in the weeks thereafter, preparing for a pandemic or bioterrorism event has become a critical part of the overall emergency preparedness plan in San Diego County. On a recent morning at Vista's Brendel Terrace Recreation Center, a full-scale exercise was conducted to test the county's ability to dispense medication from the Strategic National Stockpile to the general public in the event of a pandemic or incident of bioterrorism. The point of dispensing, or POD, involved police, fire, and medical personnel, and in a real-world situation would be one of many pods in the region, responsible for processing all or part of the 3.2 million people in San Diego County within 48 hours.
So what we'll do is take what we learned today in the timelines and everything that of the people that went through the points of dispensing here at Vista, as well as other points of dispensing that we had around the county, and analyze that data and see how close are we able to meeting that 48-hour timeline in order to get medicine out to the entire population.
Well, that's what we're going.
Oceanside's Joe Urban, Emergency Preparedness Coordinator, escorted us through the process.
The first place you're going to come to is a concept called triage. And in triage, there's staff members supporting the pod that would greet the people, kind of allay their fears, but they're also triaging those people, looking for people that are upset, emotionally unstable, prone to violence, or people with signs and symptoms of having the illness that we're trying to prevent. The first table, once you get to the table, that's where you would receive your first information, your first documentation. You're given anthrax fact sheets, which tell people the real information concerning the disease. It's information as opposed to misinformation, which is really prevalent during times of public distress or disaster. And they're giving a form which is something they're going to carry all the way through the process. It's a tracking form which documents whom is receiving medications, basic information, contact information, and as well as on the back, dependents associated with your family. And this is your immediate family.
Hello, just wait here, please.
It is estimated that each household will receive medication for 4 family members. If a household requires medication for more than 4 members, they will receive the additional amount if requested. Once inside the door, people will be gathered in small groups for a briefing, which includes a slide presentation prepared by the County of San Diego.
Goes through the disease, goes through the signs and symptoms, goes through the treatments for it, and the procedure through the rest of this process, which eventually will lead to people receiving potentially life-saving medication.
After the briefing concludes, people then proceed to the interview station for a consultation with a health professional.
At that time, they go back over some of the initial paperwork people received, the waiver of liability and the tracking form, where they one-on-one ask people if they have any allergies to medications or antibiotics. They're able to answer any more questions the general public might have. They're looking for anybody that might have slipped through all these checks and balances built into this process, whether they are feeling ill, where just anything that might cause someone not to receive the medications today. If they make it through this process without any questions, no allergies, they go to the dispensing side and receive their meds.
Hello. Yes, I'm here for meds.
In the event that people do have further medical concerns and can't be approved for prophylaxis at the interview table, a medical consultation team, staffed by doctors, is available to delve further into the individual's concerns.
This is established here to further screen people that have critical questions, possible medication allergies, signs and symptoms that they didn't know that weren't identified prior to this.
People will be either excused from the pod and referred to outside medical attention, or they will be approved for admittance back into the pod process to receive their medication. People will receive their medication at the dispensing tables, the last station before turning in paperwork and exiting the pod.
They've gone through the briefing, they've gone through the interview, they've gone through the medical consult if necessary, and this is the point where they receive their meds. This is the last chance to double check for any questions, and if there's any discrepancy, this is where it's going to be resolved. Documentation is collected, It's all barcoded so that in the event they need to do follow-up, they can trace it back based on the barcode to find out what lot of medication it was, who received it, what date they received it. If everything is in order, then they're given their medications and allowed to leave. Everybody gets a 10-day course. It's critical that all the meds are taken. You take the 10-day course, otherwise you lose all that ground and all that time.
We as county employees are exercising what it's like to respond to a bioterrorist attack. This is a major operation, and I think it really shows the collaboration and the partnerships that exist in our county, and that's really what makes our region unique, is that we all work together so well.
Our goal is to get the right resources at the right place at the right time, and in order to do that, you have to have solid communication. So that is one thing that we've really stressed during this exercise, and we're glad to see that we were able to accomplish a lot of those goals.
This is Pete Boncher for Inside Oceanside.
Tsunami evacuation route and hazard zone signs are posted. But what is the likelihood of a tsunami hitting Oceanside? And what should people do if a tsunami occurs? We talked to firefighters, lifeguards, and police officers who make up the Oceanside Emergency Preparedness team to find out.
In reality, the likelihood of a tsunami hitting San Diego is rather remote, but the potential does exist. And there have been recorded tsunamis hitting Southern California, though small in size.
A tsunami can be caused by an underwater earthquake, landslide, or the impact of a meteor displacing large amounts of water. The effect of a tsunami depends on its size and its proximity to shore. If a distant tsunami occurs, a warning will be issued. If a tsunami occurs near shore, an immediate evacuation order will be given.
If they're out on their boats, recommend that they go out further to sea. And I believe that what the notice is right now, that if you're in your vessel, go to at least 100 feet of depth of water. The tsunami wave or the action, the force is traveling underwater, so they might feel a small lift, but other than that, they won't feel anything at all if they're in that depth. On land, if it's an earthquake, during the daytime hours, the lifeguards right now will be doing public announcements from their trucks for you to move to higher ground.
In the event that it's a near shore earthquake, we won't have time for that 2-hour warning. And if you are on the beach and experiencing an earthquake of more than 45 seconds, you'll need to evacuate immediately.
If it's a near source earthquake, anything lasting over 45 seconds and you feel it, there's no time for a warning if a wave is generated. So people need to leave their stuff, leave their vehicles, and maybe start walking inland to higher elevation. Because by the time you put your barbecue in your car, you might be a victim.
Tsunami conditions can occur suddenly. Know the warning signs: an earthquake that lasts more than 45 seconds, or a rapid recession of water from the beach, and evacuate low-lying areas immediately.
Don't come down and look. If there's a tsunami warning, we have a fear that people will tend to flock to the beach areas. Number one, impeding the evacuation of the residents, and two, putting themselves in harm's way. If a large volume of people come down, they just make our job that much more difficult.
It's not going to be the beautiful wave that you see postcards in Hawaii or Jamaica. It's going to be a surge of water with a big wall coming in. And behind that wall isn't just going to be the wave breaking, it's going to be a large volume of water. And with that large volume of water comes all the pressure being pushed behind it. So it's not a pretty wave. It's something you do not want to come down and look. For your safety, stay clear and stay out of the area.
A tsunami is not for spectators. Posted signs mark safe exit routes away from the low-lying tsunami zone to designated evacuation sites at Oceanside High School, South Oceanside Elementary School, and Camp Pendleton.
The city of Oceanside has chosen to use the worst-case scenario, which a predicted 13-meter or almost a 40-foot run-up would occur in our jurisdiction. And that's devastating. There's millions of dollars and 20,000 people living in that zone.
If a tsunami occurs, a 911 alert will be issued countywide, and residents in low-lying areas will be notified if they need to evacuate.
The entire county would get a message from the emergency alert system, so all 3 million people in this county get the same message over their radios and televisions. But we are only concerned about 10% of our population, about 20,000 people on the coastal strip. And upon that warning, we would start notifying them and urge them to evacuate inland and to higher ground. Concerns is getting these people out.
If you do get notified of a tsunami or if you hear about it on the news, again, the people who need to evacuate will be notified one way or the other by public safety officials. If people were to call in to 911, they would inundate the system pretty quickly. Even though there's a tsunami coming, we still have people who have heart attacks and people who get injured in car accidents that we need to be able to respond to, and we need those 911 lines clear. So it would be really important that people not tie up those 911 lines just for questions.
Residents should be familiar with evacuation routes before a tsunami occurs and have a portable emergency kit in their car, stocked with supplies to sustain them for 72 hours.
The most accurate local information could be found on the City of Oceanside website, the KOCT channels, or the KOCT website, because we work rather closely together, and that's the only way we get accurate local information out, Oceanside specific, because the big media don't cover us unless we're ground zero.
Remember, be prepared, have a plan, and stay informed.
A tsunami is actually, it's a disaster we never want to see, but it's one we can really plan for, and the planning is get out of the way, because there's nothing that stops it.
Public safety is priority number one for the Oceanside Police. And now, when there's urgent information that can protect you or your family, you've got it. And with the ease and speed of a text message on your cell phone. Oceanside Alerts is a free service reserved for high-profile emergency situations that uses email and text messages to get vital information to the public quickly.
Oceanside Alerts is a system that we've reserved for critical incidents. We don't want to bombard people with useless information. So what we've done is we've specified different types of alerts that we want to send out. And they are missing persons, high-profile crimes, and other public safety emergencies such as wildfires or natural disasters.
At a cost of $750 per year, the police department contracts with Public Alert Systems, a Florida company that has built a customized website to deliver the Oceanside Alerts service.
But I believe that we are the first ones that have a system that sends out information specific to critical incidents and through the cell phone text messaging.
Signing up for the service is simple. Just go to the police department website, oceansidepolice.com, where you'll find a link to Oceanside Alerts, which will take you to the Oceanside Alerts homepage, where a listing of the latest alerts can be read. At the top of the page is a link to the sign-up page, where you enter your name and provide an email address. If you wish to receive cell phone text messages, include your cell phone number in the space provided.
What happens is when an alert goes out, you'll get a text message on your cell phone that'll give you really the basic critical elements to whatever that incident is. And then also you'll get an email which will give you perhaps more details, maybe photos. If we have a suspect vehicle, we might find a vehicle that looks like the one that we're looking for and put that photo out there so that people can be looking for that suspect vehicle and call the police if they happen to see it.
So how is an alert issued, and who decides when to issue an alert?
It's open to all of our officers to initiate an alert. A lot of times those will probably come out of our investigations division anytime we're dealing with a missing person or a high-profile crime such as a robbery and a homicide. That information may be generated by our investigations division. And we have a number of checks and balances and a process for approval before that goes to the person who is designated to send out the alert. Carjacking, for example, if an officer is responding to the scene and he is able to gather details about the suspect or the suspect vehicle, he can then call back to the police department and contact our dispatchers and get that information into the alert system in as close to real time as possible. And then once they hit go, it's going to go to all the recipients that have signed up.
If anyone has information that can assist police with an issued alert, they are advised to follow the instructions in the alert, which is usually to call 911.
Priority number one is keeping the public safe. We don't want anybody seeing this as a device for or a way to encourage people to take the law into their own hands. But what we really want people to do is just pay attention to the message and call 911 if you have any information related to what we might be sending out.
We're hoping that this has a positive impact. We're hoping that when we can't be every place at any given moment, that they'll be able to call 911 and just be good eyes and ears for us so that we can respond to those locations and take the appropriate measures.
The system would be particularly useful in missing persons cases, such as high-risk missing adults, for which other protocols, such as the Amber Alert system, are unavailable.
We could also utilize it with other agencies. Perhaps the lifeguard service would use us if there was a high tide warning that would encroach upon roadways down by the beach. One of the other aspects of Oceanside Alerts is that we can utilize this for other agencies in the city, i.e. the fire department.
Among the horror stories in the aftermath of the San Diego wildfires of October 2007 were cases in which the reverse 911 warning system did not work. Oceanside Alerts could potentially supplement the reverse 911 system.
We do have 911, and we can add to that system by utilizing the Oceanside Alerts. So if you're away from your home and at work and we need to actually evacuate an area, you may have pets or family members there, and for some reason the 911 would not go through. You could utilize the Oceanside Alerts, as it would come up on your cell phone as a text message, to call your family members back at that location to tell them there is an encroaching disaster, a fire, a flood, and we need to have you out of that area. So it's just one more tool that we can use to help provide a better service to the community.
When you have thousands of eyes and ears out there available to see in the places that the police cars can't, that's a huge resource to tap into. And the way I think of it is, if this helps solve one murder, if this helps us find one missing child, if this helps us save one life, then the whole project has been worthwhile.
This is Peter Boncher for Inside Oceanside.
Mother Nature is unpredictable. Her wrath may be destructive and deadly, but there is hope found in human nature.
The recent tragedies brought on by Hurricanes Katrina and Rita have sparked a search for safety in Oceanside.
These professional firefighters that give their lives for us every single day, they can't take care of Oceanside by themselves, or any place for that matter. So we as citizens, we have to help each other, and that's the whole bottom line to this.
A new wave of education is electrifying North County. Mothers, fathers, neighbors, and grandmothers are learning how to save lives.
There's a bone sticking out of my leg.
Okay, don't move it.
It's bleeding all over. It's got a lot of blood and it's going all over the place.
Okay, so the other group went to go get some help, and they're also going to bring some more medical supplies.
What happened?
We had an earthquake.
CERT, a community emergency response team, is pushing volunteers to the limit. Concerned residents are studying the difference between life and death. Donovan Brown looks like the average man, but he has witnessed a powerful combination, disaster and death, making his perspective of life very unique.
We were living in Oklahoma City at the time. I was actually just put my suit on, was going to work. The whole house shook.
Donovan is a survivor of the Oklahoma City bombing, killing 168 Americans in 1995.
You turn the corner and you see the front of this building is just gone. And the rubble there, it was just, you couldn't, it was amazing. You don't know what to say. And then I started looking down and I saw the toys. And that's when my stomach just slipped. You saw parts of coloring books.
Now he is one of 24 volunteers to complete the first community emergency response team in Oceanside.
I read something in paper about Oceanside CERT, people helping people, and people don't realize that's what it's all about.
CERT is a national program educating people in emergency preparedness. Oceanside Fire Captain Joe Urban says CERT is the answer to a prediction made 20 years ago.
There weren't enough emergency responders to meet everybody's need when there's a high demand for service, like a catastrophic event. And so LA City started a program, and they might have coined the phrase CERT, Community Emergency Response Teams. Eventually, FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, caught wind of the program and really liked it. But what they did was they adopted the core curriculum but extended it to be an all-hazard type curriculum, which included earthquakes, wildfire, but also terrorism.
CERT gained nationwide distribution after FEMA took over the program. Oceanside CERT began as a grassroots effort despite its national backbone.
In order to be an official CERT program, you have to have a sponsoring agency, which is usually a local public safety agency.
Oceanside CERT has emerged from a partnership with volunteers and the Oceanside Fire Department, plus a little help from a $3,000 grant. Volunteers who see a need for disaster awareness in their community can also contribute by participating in a 14-week course.
We've got that we know of 3
Michael Van Doren, a husband and father of 2, says CERT is a life-changing experience.
Being in construction, I thought I knew a lot about first aid and safety and emergency preparedness, but the detail provided with this program is pretty extensive. Gives you a sense of comfort and well-being.
Classes are designed to prepare people for the worst. Students are trained to be self-sufficient in random, threatening situations.
We have everything from first aid to cribbage and extraction, bracing up structures so we can go in and get people out if need be, being able to operate in a smoke-filled environment, first aid, triage, just emergency preparedness in general.
CERT training is available to anyone 18 and older. A majority of the program is taught in a classroom, but students are soon put to the test.
This is kind of like our final exam. We got to actually test ourselves to see how much we've learned. CERT students are learning by doing. Disaster simulations like this fire behind me are created so students can practice their skills. Getting to use the fire extinguisher and put out a real fire was absolutely the most amazing experience.
Supervised night demonstrations push students to battle what could be a disastrous blaze. Learning how to use a fire extinguisher did prove to be a powerful experience. An alternative training course places students inside a house where unexpected situations test their knowledge.
Making entry into that building, I could see people were a little shaky about it. They're going into an unknown building, smells like smoke, it's dark, and they don't know if they're going to find a person or a body or whatever inside.
This course has been set up as if there was a fire that just happened inside a household, and the CERT students are now looking for a possible victim or anybody that would be hurt or under any debris from the fire or the destruction.
CERT encourages students to own a backpack called a jump bag, filled with sturdy shoes, flashlights, a battery radio, a whistle, high-energy foods like protein or granola bars, and water.
My backpack stays in my truck, so I'm ready to respond at any time.
It's a relief for me knowing there's a group of people out there that I don't have to worry about.
After seeing Katrina, I mean, you know you have to do something, so if we have a major catastrophe, we have to depend on ourselves.
I suggest everyone sign up for this program. This program I've learned so much and I feel so good and prepared, and everyone needs to be prepared, and this program will definitely help everyone.
CERT is providing valuable resources teaching safety for individuals, neighborhoods, and their communities. Nothing could be better than giving individuals and their families the confidence to take action if disaster should ever strike.
The avian flu is a global concern. Here in Oceanside, emergency and medical facilities are working together to coordinate services in case of a possible pandemic.
The influenza virus has existed in birds for eons. There are many strains that circulate in birds. The strain that is of concern is H5N1. It's of concern because it's very pathogenic, meaning that it can cause severe disease and quite quickly. The concern, though, is that this avian virus, if it is transmittable from person to person, would create a pandemic. And the simple reason is no one has any immunity to it.
Health organizations worldwide are on watch to see if the avian flu in birds becomes contagious to humans.
Well, one thing I need to make very clear that there is a difference between avian flu and pandemic pandemic flu. Avian flu is the flu that is in birds. Millions of birds around the world right now. We've never seen anything like this. This existing avian flu that is primarily only in birds would have to change significantly before it could become a pandemic flu. So we're really on two tracks preparing for having avian flu show up in this county in birds, and on another track to prepare for the eventuality of something that would affect humans much more significantly. Not only do we see all these birds that many of them are near people, so you have this opportunity for these mutations or changes to happen where people and animals are close together. We also know that eventually we'll have another pandemic influenza. We don't know how bad it'll be, but if it's a bad one, like the Spanish flu, we need to work now to be prepared.
Preparedness is key for cities and individual families. It's important for people to stay informed and know preventative measures to take.
What people can do to prepare for a pandemic influenza or avian influenza is the same thing that they do for seasonal influenza. That's making sure that they get an influenza vaccine. Currently there's not a vaccine for avian influenza because it hasn't been identified to be transmitted from human to human, but we do have an influenza vaccine for this flu season. Make sure that people practice good hand hygiene. We also make sure that people practice good cough etiquette, we call it, and that is making sure that you have tissues available if you know that you're sick and you're coughing. If you do cough, that you cough into the arm of your sleeve instead of coughing into your hand, which then can transmit the virus to other people. The other thing people can do is make sure that they maintain a distance from other people when they know that they're sick. Call that social distancing. I don't think anyone knows what the likelihood of avian influenza affecting humans is, so right now it's on the watch list.
A pandemic could immobilize more than 20% of the population. This would have a significant impact on businesses and city services.
Worldwide, governments and health organizations are in cooperation trying to get a hold on this. But just here in North County, the whole north tier of cities and hospitals are in communication with the county, and we're presenting a unified approach. The tool we have is education.
We've been working with San Diego County, and the San Diego County office has sent out a Family Disaster Plan and Personal Survival Guide that was designed to help people prepare their home and their environment at home to make sure that they have a supply of food and clothing and medications and maybe like pet supplies, some things that people might not have thought of in a disaster. And this information can be used for people in a pandemic that we're talking about today or any kind of a disaster, whether it's natural or man-made.
The old rule of thumb was everybody should be self-sufficient for 72 hours. That means food and water to survive any event, whether it's an earthquake, a wildfire. Now, in the event of a pandemic, the authorities are now saying 2 weeks, 30 to 50% of the population could become ill. Therefore, those people shouldn't be out in circulation, so they won't be reporting to work. And that's going to affect both government and private industry.
Worst case scenario with a pandemic is there wouldn't be enough. We are as prepared as we can be. The hospital is geared to set up tents outside the emergency room here so people can be triaged, and those who are unlikely to be helped by hospitalization will be sent home.
This is something there's no way there's enough public health people, first responders, hospital beds to care for the numbers that are projected. It's an individual's ability to learn the information and live that way that will help us all survive this. Become educated, don't panic, and follow direction. That's our key to surviving this.